Washington football. Woo!
Speaking of Pat, this man just messaged me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed should be here later on, and hopefully he will be showing up this time. But the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And now we are joined by our very special guest. The title of this episode is The First Rodeo. So we thought we'd bring in our own wrestler himself, Mr. Steve Manella from PFF. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday evening, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Appreciate y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. I know you're so busy out and about and everything going along in the sense. But before we get into the quarterbacks, the combine that's happening today, the defensive linemen and linebackers are showing up and working out as we speak. But that being said, the big news from Adam Schefter this morning about Josh Harris sitting in on 6 interviews with different quarterbacks. And I'm not sure about asking questions or not. It was been rumored and reported that happened. But some people have an issue with this, dating back with Snyder, brings back old feelings. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I can see why some fans are concerned or have some concerns because of the past with Dan. Go ahead.
No,
you're good.
My son's talking to me right now, Steve. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Love it, man. Love it. Bring him on. No, all good. Yeah, I think I don't have any issues with it. I mean, Harris is he's the new owner, right? And maybe he just wants to introduce himself and shake some hands and have some conversations. So I don't think there's really any huge issue.
No, yeah, I 100% agree with you. I mean, people can talk about it, shades of Dan Snyder, blah, 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 but when have we ever known Dan Snyder to ever sit in on meetings or interviews or what? He just calls in from his yacht or from his office and says, hey, y'all guys are picking this guy or else type thing. So, imagine
if you got you took over as the CEO, managing partner of a huge financial company. You have no background in it whatsoever. And you're just no, you guys got it. Huge process going on. You guys got it. I'll need to learn about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And then Sam Fortier said he put out there from his sources that he was just he was an observer in the room. He wasn't asking questions, whatever. But at the end of the day, my point of view on that is what's the problem with that? Hopefully one of these guys is going to be the face of the franchise for the next 10 years plus. So what's the problem with sitting in on the interviews and kind of getting a feel for these guys before you actually meet them in person, one-on-one when they come for their visits or whatever? But I mean,
absolutely.
If it comes out later on that he had an influence on the draft pick,
he could do it in a Speedo. I don't care, man. I don't care.
If it comes out April 26th or 27th, whatever it is, that Josh Harris had heavy influence on the pick and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we can circle back to this conversation and be okay, what are we doing here? But I don't think that's going to happen. So it's just a nothing burger. But another day in Washington football life, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot of money spent just to enforce your opinion on what gets happened in the draft, just with everything that happened with Newmark and Peters. But sorry, Hall, you had a question for Steve?
Yeah, so just jumping into the quarterbacks is obviously first I'll say, are you a two-part question? Are you pick a guy at number 2 at quarterback camp, or are you in the trade back and build the roster out and drop the quarterback in like Ron Rivera wanted to do kind of when he was here? And the second part of that question is, if you are a quarterback guy at number 2, which guy are you in on, or is there a specific guy that you have targeted so far?
Yeah, good questions. Of course, Mike. I'm in the camp of staying at 2 and taking a quarterback. I think that
is the correct.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen a few people on here saying trade down and all that and try and build. Or I've seen even some crazy scenarios of sign Kirk Cousins and trade down and that. But that's not happening. We know that's not happening. I think that I've messaged Kyle a few times, but I've switched up a little bit on this.
Yeah.
Obviously I wanted Caleb Williams. That's not going to happen. We all know the Bears are going to pick him. So, and that's fine. Good luck to him and then the Bears, right? But it's really between for me May and Daniels, and I've watched film probably 5-6 games on each, and man, it's a very tough toss up to me. I think that right now I'd lean towards Daniels. But man, Drake May has big time potential too. So I think either one really, guys, is I've been saying it, I'm leaving it up to Cliff and Dan Quinn and those guys, because I'm happy with either one. I think most Washington fans should be happy with either one, because they're both have really high ceilings. Both have really high ceilings. We're in a good spot. We've been saying that for a while, but we're in a good spot. Obviously, number one would have been great, because then you know who you're going to pick. But yeah, I like both, man. And I think Daniels, his progression from Arizona State to now has been amazing.
Yeah.
So his film is crazy, man. The throws he's making from the pocket. People want to compare him to guys like Lamar and stuff. I think that's unfair to Lamar, first of all, and I think it's unfair to Daniels too, because he's really a pocket passing quarterback that can move. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So
they tried to say that he's like RG3, man. I'm like, I know this is stupid to say to some people, but in my opinion, I 100% believe it, that Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback right now than RG3 ever was, just as specifically a quarterback.
Yeah, no, he is. I agree with that. I agree with that as well. And then again, if they take Drake May, I'm all in for that too. His film's stupid. He does miss some throws here and there that from the pocket, when he has a clean pocket, that you're like, come on, man. But man, some of his throws that under pressure are crazy. And I'm talking tight window throws. So yeah, I'm cool with either one, honestly.
Yeah, I just need some more facial hair from my man. But he does look like, I saw that one interview from him. I was not expecting his voice to be that deep. I'm not going to lie to you. I was kind of expecting a Jordan Reed type of situation there. But after I did, I was like, dude, he definitely seems like he just like crushed a Budweiser, changing his car's oil, and then sat down for that interview. It's totally what he looked like. But that being said, today being the Combine, Steve, are there any players today at the Combine for defensive line and linebackers that you're looking out for?
You know how I roll with the offense and the cues. So I haven't really dug any dug. All right,
let me ask a better question, because that was horrible, Steve.
Yeah. You're good. You're good.
You obviously, you and your clinic, you guys do a lot to quarterback impact. You work with kids, obviously going up into late teens, right? What are some traits for coaches and others that you see that transition, but that you can see at a young level, that obviously is something you see at the pro level as well, but what are some traits that people like pro scouts are looking for in a quarterback?
Now that's a great question. It's a loaded question. So yeah, and we train honestly from pro down. So actually we have a great group of guys, college guys that come in and spin it too. So it's fun. But no, I think the big key, obviously, I always look at quarterbacks and I want to see their base first. I want to make sure, when they're in the pocket, do they have a good base? Are they loaded to throw at any angle? And what that means is, their lower half. Their lower half is loaded into the ground. They're not so wide on throwing from their stride. And that's some things that I've seen, like Drake May has issues with at times, but that can be corrected, right? Josh Allen did too, and look at Josh Allen now, right?
So like Andrew Luck is a perfect example of that, isn't he, Steve?
Yeah, he is. Andrew Luck is man, he was obviously, as we all know, was number one pick and was amazing, but he was fundamentally and mechanically as sound as it gets, right? So
who's the most fundamentally and mechanically sound in this draft?
Oh, man, I think because he gets a lot of slack from being all off platform, but man, when he's in the pocket, he's really good still as Caleb Williams. I mean, he really is. But I think Daniels is right there. I saw someone say today they think the Bears should take Daniels at 1, which is crazy. So not crazy. I mean, he's that good. But
that's Hall's boy, Dan Orlovsky.
That's who it was, Dano. Yeah. Yep. I'd be very surprised if that happened, but if it did, well, then we know where we're going with that at number 2. But no, I think those two guys. J.J. McCarthy's another one that's very, very good as far as fundamentally sound. I just think that he may have some issues in this class because of the guys ahead of him, right? I mean, there is a loaded class, but no, that's a great question. And then, of course, arm slot angles and all that. We look at all that stuff, too. I mean, you don't want to be too sidearm when you got a quarterback, or too long. Drake May can kind of get a little long in his release sometimes. I've seen it on film, but I know it's been brought up on Twitter. as well. I kind of worry about that a little bit, but then there's other clips where he's very quick with his release, so it can all be worked on.
Yeah, I know the release can obviously be worked on. It's just like it's not going to be drastic. Like if you're really bad at release, it's not like you're going to be the quickest in the NFL, right? But the one thing is
No.
Bo Nix is a prospect. I thought he had the quickest release in this draft class. The way that he was able to get out of some pressure and getting the ball out of his hands, I
Yeah.
thought it was very similar to what Drew Brees kind of throws. And I thought maybe Sean Payton and the Broncos would be all over Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix is one, and honestly, as far as quick releases, Michael Penix as well. Man, he's a blitz beater. He's a big time blitz beater, and that's going to help him in the next level. But Bo Nix also can spin it, so it's really a loaded class. I mean, it really is. You could even go down to Spencer Rattler, who can play.
Dude.
You know what I mean? So it's a loaded quarterback class. If you need a quarterback, this is the year. And that's why I say, why would Washington trade down? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So
Steve, I
get one of those
remember
guys.
a couple years ago when Rattler was considered to be the Caleb Williams, what he was supposed to be, obviously, and it's just funny, the ironic that they both ended up in the same draft. But I remember seeing some dimes that Rattler threw were flat-footed, a 60-yard rope down the middle of the field deep and just perfectly in stride. And that's one of those plays that you take away from you, and you're like, what the heck happened,
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And both of those guys, Rattler and Williams, were at OU here at OU with Lincoln Riley, which is crazy. But no, I'm excited, guys. Cliff Kingsbury is a phenomenal quarterback coach, and it's gonna, that's a huge get for Washington and us. When he went to the Raiders at first, I was like, damn, I really wanted him. But then when the news popped that he was coming over, I was like, holy crap! Magic Johnson pulled some strings, I guess. So
I got it.
But yeah,
yes, sir.
Paul, do you want to ask a question before I wrap up?
Yeah. It kind of segues into my next question. Cliff Kingsbury, obviously hired as the OC. I was going to ask you how you felt about that, but I was going to segue off of that also and say a lot's been made about the defensive staff and the guys that got hired, and rightfully so. It's some really good coaches, but what do you think about the offensive staff that Dan Quinn has assembled? Because a lot has been made about, Brian Johnson, like what did he do in Philly and blah, 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 blah. But how do you just feel about the offensive staff overall and their ability that's going to be coming up probably to be coaching a quarterback or developing a quarterback?
Yeah, no, great question. I think Dan Quinn has done a great job with the whole staff, right? He's even offense and defensive side. Adam Peters has done a great job, him as well, loading up on this staff. There's some big name guys there, and I don't know that we would have been able to get them before this all happened. So, but Cliff Kingsbury for sure, man, we know what he can do with the quarterbacks. He's had some great ones, and he admits that he's obviously had some top tier talent to work with. But that's why he's here, and that's why we have the number 2 pick, and it's time to find him another one of those top tier guys to grow with for the next 10 years or so, like you said before. So I think, I'm excited, man. I don't see any way this time around that we're going to be any worse off than we were the last 20 years. I don't see it, man. There's no way. So it can't be, right, guys? If it is, all three of us I don't know what we're gonna do, but it just can't happen.
I mean, at that point, I'll just give up and be like, I'm never gonna see a Super Bowl at this point. So it is what it is.
Hey, don't bring that kind of energy in here, Ricky Bobby. Now to wrap this up, Steve, only have a couple more questions for you, sir. But with Drake May, you kind of talked about his base, right? And some concerns of some critics have pointed out his footwork. Is that what you meant by base with footwork, or is that something you don't see with Drake May, is having bad footwork?
Yeah, I think that when they say that stuff, I think they're probably meaning that like he's too long on his stride a little bit. Sometimes he has little happy feet in the pocket when there's pressure, like he's not setting up to throw when he could be. I've noticed a little bit of that too, and that also drives his inaccuracy at times. But no, I think it can all be corrected. I mean, he's young too, right? We gotta, he's not even in the NFL yet, so it'll be corrected. Like again, I don't want to compare him to Josh Allen, but Josh Allen had a lot of those kind of flaws, and now look at him, right? So it can all be corrected.
My man. Now the next question for you, with Caleb Williams, what is your number one biggest critique of him?
I think Caleb, as special as he is, arm talent wise and off platform as he is, I think that I think sometimes he relies too much on scrambling around, and I mean there was some times where I'd watch film and I'm like, man, he scrambled 10 yards backwards just to throw it 20 yards across the field, right? So I don't think you have to do. You're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. Like, just being real, you're not playing against. And this is no knock on any of these schools, but you're not playing against the Pac-12 and in the NFL every week. So, I think that's the biggest thing. He needs to. Obviously, in the NFL, you got to throw from the pocket. We all know that. People bring up Mahomes all the time. Patrick Mahomes throws from the pocket a lot, like a lot. So I don't know, that stuff kind of gets a little crazy, but I'd say that's Caleb's big thing. Man, he's a special talent, though. He really is. His film is stupid. He'll make anyone better, I think. And Chicago, if they take him, good luck, right? So good for them.
My man. Now to next question I have two more for you. Next question. Let's say that Snyder hijacked you, Steve, and he chained you up on an island and he said, look, you got to stay here until you get a quarterback here. And he's saying you're not allowed to get a quarterback on number 2, but you have to pick a quarterback in the second round between these 3 quarterbacks. You got to pick between Michael Penix, Rattler, or J.J. McCarthy. Who are you picking?
Woo! Oh, man, Michael Penix. I'm going to go Michael Penix.
To run Cliff
Kingsbury's
Kingsbury's
I'm going to go Michael Penix. Well, you didn't say that. Now, when you
my bad,
yeah, you're good. No, I thought you mean just pure quarterback wise. Now, to run his offense, either Rattler or McCarthy, I'm gonna go JJ. He can move more than people think.
Yeah, you're right, and obviously it's been hypothetically talked about that he's going to be a top 5 pick.
Sure.
So it's I should have used Bo Nix, but I still think that's an easy answer for me personally. But Steve, last question for you: at the combine, what do you see from the quarterbacks at the combine, and do you kind of see any advantage of them playing or participating?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I know the top 3 guys aren't going to throw. I mean, I don't know that that's a big deal. They're going to throw on their pro days anyway, so I don't know that's a big deal. I think you definitely want to look at like measurables and all that good stuff, and then how they interview. I mean, that's a big key too. If you got a kid that's just a jerk, then yeah, that's going to raise some red flags. But yeah, I think the interview process that'll be good. But their pro days, they'll all throw it and sling it around like they all do, so they'll be fine.
Absolutely. Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining us this evening, brother. Everything you do with QB Impact and then PFF. Just before you get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, sir, and would like to?
No, I appreciate you guys always having me, man. I love joining the group here. Just Coach Manella on Twitter, IG. I'm at same thing, Coach Manella on IG and all that stuff. So appreciate you guys, man. Exciting times for us as fans. And I'm ready. I'm ready for the draft.
I'm with you, brother. Steve, have a great night, sir, and enjoy your weekend in the Combine.
All right, guys, you too. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
We just spoke with the man, Mr. Steve Manella from PFF. I loved his breakdown of quarterbacks. I'm sorry for some of those bad questions there. My fault.
Hey, happens to the best of us.
Hey, now let's get into our fan questions before we are joined by our next guest. And this first fan question is going to be in the Discord before we go to the Colonel, because I got to mix it up a little bit, all right? Because I do favor the Colonel a little bit too much. Now, the first question is from Arch Deluxe in the Discord. His question is, have your thoughts on the quarterbacks changed as time goes on? Is there a significant gap between them?
I pretty much go back and forth every day, every other day. Like, I was in, the old group chat that Kyle was in, but the group chat with, all our boys, and I was like, you know what? Today's the day. I'm going to plant my flag in the Jaden Daniels camp after going back and forth numerous times over the numerous weeks. And then, honestly, over the past, day and a half, 24 hours, whatever you want to call it, I've been like, man, I've been watching more Drake May and been listening to people's critiques, going back, watching a little bit of games here and there when I got some time at work. And I'm just like, man, some of the throws, like Steve was saying, some of the throws he makes, yes, he does miss some ones that make you scratch your head and go come on, you got to clean that up. But some of those throws, you literally just jaw dropping, whoa type stuff. So I think I'm still honestly 51% on the Jaden Daniels side. But again, between now and April, I'll probably switch it up 4 different times. But if I had to pick a guy right now, I'd say Jaden Daniels. And as far as the gap goes for me, the gap between Jaden Daniels and Drake May is it grows and it closes every single day because we're gonna learn more information as this process goes along. So, I think that as of right now, I'm a Jaden Daniels guy, but again, it's subject to change over a couple times over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, for me, it has changed a little bit, Deluxe. I still have Caleb up at the top. Before, obviously I was kind of hating on May, but I've kind of adjusted the way that I'm thinking about all of this. I think, especially given the fact that we hired Cliff Kingsbury, that does change things a lot because I did have Penix more highly ranked before, and that's specifically just because of his film. Wasn't because of the bowl games or anything like that. It was specifically what I watched. I called him a surgeon in the pocket, but obviously the running ability is very important for this offense, and it will be going forward. But that being said, that doesn't mean that Jaden is going to be my number two at ranking at this moment. Because his size is a big issue. Size and speed. Size and speed. Well, Jaden has the speed and Drake has the size, right? He has that kind of bigger body frame that he can be able to take the physical, violent nature of the NFL. With Jaden, that is a big concern, right? But I feel like as much as crazy it is to say that about the size and speed, I still think they are 2A and 2B in my personal opinion. And now number 3, I'm not going to lie to you, it technically would be 4, is Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix would operate this offense perfectly fine. And you saw that with Oregon. It's very similar with what they would like to do with spreading you out and being able to run you up the middle and the kind of spread speed offense. And I think Bo Nix, with what he showed at Oregon, having lots of experience, being able to run the ball as he does, as much as it would be a ghetto version of what you could have with Jaden or Drake or Caleb, it would be still productive. But I'm not saying that that's somebody you should take in the top 5 or anything like that. But my thought process on the quarterbacks has changed, and one of my biggest concerns with Jaden was the unnecessary hits, and it still is to this day, and it will be because it's obviously glaringly obvious what happens with him on the football field, and that's not something that is easily fixed. When you look back at RG3 and his sliding issues, how long did it take for him to fix it? Like 5 years, right? And does
Yeah.
Jaden have that much time? I mean, look at Anthony Richardson right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
did
that's true.
great. Yes, he did great last year, but he didn't even play the whole year. And as a franchise quarterback, if you're not there, you know, something's going to happen. Now let's move on.
Hmm.
That's a really good question by Deluxe. Now the next question by Deluxe, he's a good fan of ours. He always asks us really good questions. This next one by Deluxe is: a lot of attention is put towards the Underwear Olympics. How do you think the prospects prepare for the truly important part, the interviews? 15-minute interviews with a bunch of teams can add up. Possible mental fatigue.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that kind of goes into the mental part of it as well. I mean, you're gonna have mental fatigue on the field as well. You're gonna have to fight through adversity mentally wise on the field. So I mean, that's a good thing as far as I see it. But as far as like the whole preparing part, like the really the only ones I really take, I guess, like seriously, if you want to call it that, in the combine is the cone drill because that like can test your explosion. Maybe like your vertical and your broad jump because that also goes into explosion. But I mean, as far as like the interviews go, it's only 15 to 20 minutes, or I think it's 18 minutes actually. It's a weird number, but I think it's 18 minutes long. So I mean, I think it's more of like a get on the whiteboard, like break down some film, get to know the type, get to know the person, just like a quick like type of interview thing. So I would say that yeah, it's good if you're like one of I would say it's good if you're like the fifth or sixth team on the guy's list of interviews because, like you said, that mental fatigue, the answering the questions, the I think that that shows like your mental toughness if you can pick yourself up and be like, even though you're tired, you've been doing this all day and blah 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 blah. You're getting dragged here, you're getting dragged there. You got to do this, got to do that. Your agent wants this, your agent wants that. For you to be able to be going there and still stand tall, get on the whiteboard, break down film, do whatever, you draw up some plays, present yourself well in front of your potential bosses and employers. I think that goes a long way as well. So I think that that's a big part for me.
I'm not really sure, Arch, how you can prepare yourself for an interview. To be honest, like
It's true.
that
Yeah.
is incredibly hard because you don't know what questions you're going to be asked, right? Like you could go back and watch your film and make sure that you are prepped and knowing exactly what happened to you, what they possibly stress and or questions. But I would tell you this: how I would prepare for it. Yeah, I would probably pick about 5 arguments a day with my wife just to be able to prepare myself for the being able to being on your P's and Q's at all times, being able to find out every detail of everything. That's probably the best way to do it. But honestly, man, I think the best way to prepare for something like that is just being yourself and understanding what they're honestly looking for and they just want somebody who is willing to go the extra mile to do work for them. That's all. And there's a lot of lip service there, but there's action behind it, and obviously it's an interview. But there are little subtle ways in an interview that you could win them over by actions. But like DK Metcalf, for example, I mean, the shirt off, like that's like that kind of that eases tensions of an interview and makes it a lot easier, right? And I think people might be taking it too seriously, might add to the tension or in the room. You know what I'm saying? It's much more so about just be yourself and be open about the interview process, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be put in a situation where you're asked to do something you're not prepared for, right? Now, the next question in the Discord, before we are joined by our next guest, is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
Oi.
Thank you, brother. His question is, who wins what in the UK podcaster NFL Combine? Andy Lockhart, Scott Hartley, and Andy Burrows. Scott says he's running a flat 7-second 40.
I'd say Burrows maybe wins
Lockhart's
the
got the
vertical.
bench. Lockhart's got the bench, bro.
Burrows probably win the 40, or not the 40, the vertical, because
Have you
feel
ever
like he's
seen
the
Old
tallest.
School? You remember when Vince
it's
Vaughn is
fine.
doing the ring joint? That's going to be Lockhart with the cigarette in his mouth.
No, yeah. What would Scott win? What would Hartley win?
Hartley? He'd win the IQ test, whatever the Wonderlic,
Yeah,
whatever they
yeah.
give them.
The interview process.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that Hartley would totally win the IQ test, and then Hartley also, I think, would win the catching the boom, 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 going back and forth, John. But Burrows obviously would win the 40. The guy's got long strides. He runs really well, and without a doubt, Andy would win the 40 without a doubt. Now, the next question that we have submitted, this is from the Colonel. I know my internet's tripping, bro. I'm just trying to make sure it's all calmed down at this point. Next question is from the Colonel. What is your biggest offseason surprises so far? Personally, my biggest surprise was Pete Carroll getting fired from the Seahawks, and a little less surprised that Bill Belichick hasn't been picked up in some capacity. How about you guys?
Biggest surprise. I would say biggest surprise was us not landing Ben Johnson, just because that was the consensus all out there. And I think that obviously everyone was fixated on that. Everyone was ready for that. They were just singing the praises of like all the rejoice in the world whenever Detroit lost. Like finally we can get Ben Johnson hired. And then nope, pulled the rug right down from under us. But I'm good with Dan Quinn. It is what it is at this point. But I would say for me, Ben Johnson not getting hired here and not even taking a job at all.
For me, Colonel, without a doubt, this is very easy for me. The biggest surprise of the offseason so far is the fact that Matt Eberflus is still the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Is anyone really going to look me in the eye and tell me that Eberflus is going to be here at the end of Caleb Williams' contract? And you're talking about the Dan Snyder way of doing things. And if you're saying that, then that means you're going to be hiring a coach that likes your quarterback. That's not the path that you want to go down. If that's the route you want to go down, be my guest. But I still call bullcrap on CW going there. I still think that there's something up there, and they're just pushing it down the line.
You didn't see the video that came out with Justin Fields when he's jumping up and down?
Come on, bro. You don't think Justin Fields would be happy as hell to hear that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be playing with him?
You didn't hear his manager in the background? You ready to go home is what he said. Like you can clearly hear him say, you ready to go home? He's from Atlanta.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's fine. Does Atlanta want Justin Fields is the question.
Hey, if you look, Vegas knows something. If you look at the betting odds in Vegas, he's like minus 425 or something wild to like go to Atlanta. So I mean, he's like not even like the heavy favorite. He's the heavy D favorite. Like he's huge.
I got you.
But yeah, I mean, look, we'll see.
But the other, honestly, big surprise for me, Colonel, was the fact that I didn't think that I would like Dan Quinn as much as I do. You know, during the process leading up, I kind of poo-pooed it, kind of had that attitude about it because I didn't, with Josh Harrison coming, you didn't know how they were feeling about the situation. Obviously, we're not in the interviews. We don't know these guys. We don't have the same connections as the other ones. And then we're kind of looking at things at a different lens, right? The biggest surprise for me by far was not only the fact that we were able to get Dan Quinn, but that the Cowboys didn't retain Joe Witt Jr., and we had heard a lot about him. And then he coming over here, and then the staff that they've put together, everything that they've said in the pressers, Like, and I'm not trying to be facetious or try to, like, literally everything that they say is like hits with me, you know? Like when I talk about DeJuan Jones and what he brought to the table, it's like that type of stuff that they talk about. And like that's why to me it was so surprising that I wasn't on board before. And I guess I probably can't be too hard on myself in that breath because it's not like I talk to these people on the daily or anything. But it very surprising to me how much I have enjoyed everything that this staff has said that they represent and they're going to enforce and that they will be carrying out on Sundays, because that is what this team needs. They need that attitude. They need the aggressiveness. They need the confidence. They had it before and it went away a long time ago. But now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Ryan Roberts from Rise and Draft, also the scout for College Gridiron. Mr. Ryan Roberts, how are you doing on this beautiful Thursday evening, sir?
Doing pretty well, guys. How are you?
Doing great. I hear
Pretty
you were at
good,
the
pretty good.
combine, sir. How is it treating you?
It's doing pretty well so far, man. I just got in earlier today. I hope you guys excuse me. The background here isn't the best. I'm in a little bit of an Airbnb situation, but making the best of it so far, man. It's gonna be a great week.
Well, I'm really, really happy to hear that. And also, I know that you do some work for Notre Dame. And so before we do anything else, I did want to ask you about Joe Alt and others. Because in my personal opinion, Ryan, I know I'm just an evaluator of people, right? But I do think that Joe Alt is the best player in this draft. Kind of talk about Notre Dame's players that they have coming into this draft, and who do you feel really good about?
I mean, it obviously starts with Joe. I mean, I think that I would say it like this. I think there's three players that I would say are the blue chip players in the 2024 NFL draft. I think one is Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. I think two is Brock Bowers out of Georgia, although he's a little bit of a unique size profile. But then I think that Joe Alt is about as safe a prospect as you're going to find in this class. I mean, 6'8", 322 pounds, former high school tight ends, played 2.5 years starter at Notre Dame, was coached by Harry Hiestand. His dad's in the Ring of Honor for the Kansas City Chiefs as an offensive lineman. Like, it's just a really easy evaluation, right? Like, it's not one where you have to think too hard about it. So I think Joe Alt is fantastic. After that, you have Audric Estime, the running back, who's probably going to be around a second to fourth round pick, somewhere in that ballpark. Very explosive, powerful. There's going to be some questions about what he can do in the passing game, what he can do consistently out in space. I think that that's what this week is designed for, to show that he can be more than just a 1-2 downhill plugger. He can be a little bit more of a guy that can be a diverse running back on the next level. Cam Hart, cornerback, who was down at the Senior Bowl. He is 6'2 7/8, 204 pounds. He's going to run well. He's going to test pretty well. He's a little bit scheme specific. He's more of a cover three heavy type of cornerback, but in that system, I think he could do tremendous things. And then you have the linebackers, J.D. Bertrand, Maris Loifau. Maris is a little bit of a jack of all trades, but he has kind of a question of how quick he processes. J.D. Bertrand is more of he knows where he's always supposed to be, but is he the physically imposing player that is going to be a clear-cut, first linebacker in his system? So you're going to have a bunch of those guys. Blake Fisher at right tackle as well is going to be here this week also.
I wanted to ask you about Blake Fisher, and because obviously he being a later round pick, but obviously Notre Dame had a very quality offensive line. Talk about why he's probably in that later round.
Yeah, so it's actually funny, man. Like, there's a wide variety of opinions on Blake. I've spoken to a couple scouts and a very prominent draft analyst that obviously has great connections around the league. And there's some people that have third and fourth round grades on Blake. And there's others that have very late round grades on Blake. Like, it's just a wide variety of opinion on him because he's 6'6", he's 310 pounds this past year, but before that he played in more in the 325, 335 range. He's very powerful, but technically still a lot of room for improvement. And honestly, he lost about 20 pounds this past offseason. I felt that really kind of zapped some of his power that he brings to the table. And that for me is the best part of his process. But he is, unless there's somebody that fell through the cracks, he's the youngest offensive lineman in the 2024 NFL draft, though. So there's developmental upside. There's potential. He's played right tackle. He's played a little bit of left tackle during his career at Notre Dame. I think that he has some potential that you can tap into. He just needs to be with a good offensive line coach, in my opinion.
Right. So here in Washington, all the talk about here is about the quarterbacks, obviously. And there's been a mock draft out there that had, I think, either Atlanta or Denver jumping up to number 2, taking a guy. And it's taking J.J. McCarthy maybe around 8 to 12, 8 to 10, something like that. What does a guy like J.J. McCarthy bring that can translate to the NFL, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, he comes from a pro-style system, obviously, right? I mean, Michigan with Jim Harbaugh and that system we're doing, it's very relatable to the NFL. There are also athletic traits that you can get excited about. He's going to fit the standard of, 6'2.5", 6'3" plus. He's going to be a good athlete. He has a plus arm as far as NFL standards. I think there's a lot to work with, honestly, Mike, but I do think he's getting over evaluated or pushed up the board a little bit because there is a question after the top three. You have Caleb Williams, you have Jaden Daniels, you have Drake May, whatever order you choose. After that, it's like Bo Nix, who's 24 years old, that you have a little bit of a deeper understanding, or do you go for a guy like J.J. McCarthy, who, although he wasn't as productive as a couple of the others guys, he has athletic traits and he's only 21 years old, right? So I think it's the developmental thing a little bit. I think that it's way too early for him, to be completely honest, but I do think he has developmental upside. It's just about getting him in the right system, and I think you need to be a little bit patient with him. He's not a guy that's just going to get running as a rookie in the NFL, in my opinion. He's a guy that more you let him play a little bit at the end of first year, then second year, third year, hopefully you get the best out of J.J. McCarthy.
Absolutely love it. One of the positions that Washington should target heavily, either in free agency or the draft, is edge. And obviously, they're most likely not going to be getting an edge player in the first round. So, Ryan, what are some edge guys that you really like in this draft that would fit the Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr. defense?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, like you said, you guys are probably not going to be in so for what Dan Quinn wants to do and what he fundamentally believes in, obviously, a heavy cover 3 heavy type of approach on the back end. He's going to want to get guys that can get after the quarterback and let loose. And he's had a variety of different types of defensive ends in his career too. I mean, he's had the strong power plugs, the kind of tightly wound guys. He's had obviously the more athletic kind of tweener guys like Micah Parsons recently with the Dallas Cowboys. I think a guy maybe late day 2 that might be a potential cool fit is Austin Booker out of Kansas. Now he's not a day 1 starter in the NFL, but he's a guy that early on you can get him in some situational reps, 6'4.5", 250 pounds. He's sleek. He's explosive. I think as you can mature him a little bit, he's a starter long-term, but there's a lot of guys that I think could be options even on day 2. I mean, Braylon Trice is a guy from Washington that I love a ton. He is borderline first round, but might fall to the second round type of conversation. I mean, there's a few guys like that. Even if you want to sleep into day 3, I think Javonte Jean-Baptiste from Notre Dame is a guy that we didn't even talk about as much, but he is another guy that he played in like the 255 range, but his weight's been kind of all over the place. He was 248 when he was at Ohio State. He was more in the 255 to 260 for Notre Dame. He showed up today at the combine at 239 pounds. So his weight's been all over the place, which I think is going to help him because he has shown the ability to play at those variety of weights. Had a really nice year this year for Notre Dame, and he just ran a 4.66 in the 40. So he's obviously a pretty athletic player as well.
And on top of that, Ryan, I'm pretty sure I just saw this, that he actually had food poisoning last night and was up all night, throwing up all night, and then went out and did that at the combine.
That would make sense because I honestly, I was puzzled this morning, Kyle. I woke up and when I saw the weight start coming in, I'm like, why the heck is Javonte Jean-Baptiste only 239 pounds, right? Because your initial impulse is, right or wrong, same thing that happened with Braylon Trice today, who weighed in at 245 pounds after weighing in at 270 this past year for Washington. Wow. You're like, okay, guys always cut weight for the combine. But at some point, it's like, hey, that's a little bit too much. So honestly, my first impulse was like, Javonte's just trying to run fast, which he did. But he is more a guy that's probably going to run in the 250, play in the 250, 255 range. It's kind of more his style, in my opinion.
Okay.
Right. Another position that Washington is going to be looking to beef up if they don't address it in free agency is the tight end position. You mentioned Brock Bowers being one of your blue chip guys. Who are some other names outside of Brock Bowers that Washington fans should get familiar with?
Man, it's not a great tight end class this year, to be very honest about it. I think that the clearest cut guy after Brock is probably Jatavion Sanders out of Texas. He's more in the 6'3" plus 250 pound range. He's kind of modern what like a Kyle Shanahan tight end looks like, right? A guy that you can play a little bit attached, you can play detached, you're going to run slides, you're going to run delays, you're going to try to get him in space a ton. Like he's a yak threat as a tight end. After that, you're just kind of gambling on a couple guys. Like I like Theo Johnson out of Penn State. He's not ready today to be like a crazy difference maker, in my opinion. but he's 6'6 plus. He's 255 pounds. He supposedly has a chance to run in 4.4s at the combine at 255 pounds, which would be an epic time, right? So he actually set the Penn State tight end record this last offseason. He ran 4.51 electronic, which broke Mike Gesicki's record that was standing at Penn State. So he's a really athletic kid. Outside of that, you can tap into some guys that are maybe not the high ceiling guys, but more of high floors, like a Cade Stover out of Ohio State kind of fits that. Like nothing flashy about Cade, but he's just going to be one of those guys that inline, detached. He's going to be a good blocker. He's going to be fundamentally sound. He's going to have good hands. He might not bring athletic upside like some of those guys, but he's a very safe option in what is kind of a downside end class.
Yeah, and today, to wrap this up, Ryan, I only have a couple more questions for you. But today, obviously, at the Combine was defensive line and linebackers. One guy, Edgerrin Cooper, 34-inch arms, kind of a quarterback spy, obviously a really good, fundamental, great linebacker there. Talk about some linebackers you think that would be good in the essence of, I guess you could say, being able to play the run well, obviously, but being able to get after the passer that could fit in an attacking style defense.
Edgerrin Cooper's definitely one of them, obviously. Like you said, Texas A&M. I think he had like 8 sacks this past year, 17 tackles for loss. I mean, he was a really good player for the Aggies. His processing is very up and down, but as a attack style player, there's a whole lot to like, obviously. He's very twitched up. He's short area explosive. There's a lot of good things to really tap into there. I think linebacker-wise, another guy that's probably my favorite in the class, actually is my top linebacker, is Junior Colston out of Michigan.
Okay.
He is at 6'2" and some change. What he measured in today, I think he was 239 pounds. I've been told the kid's probably going to run in the right around 4.5 flat to 4.53, somewhere in that ballpark. He's very explosive. He was quietly Michigan's leading tackler each of the past 2 years. And then one of my other favorites, who is I think is going to be a little bit of a value this year, is Peyton Wilson out of NC State.
Yes, sir. That's my guy.
Look, man, he's such a good football player. Like just flat out, early second round grade for me. Like just flat out, he's really good on the field. The problem is that Peyton has had multiple shoulder injuries in the past at NC State that has cost him some time. He's had an ACL tear. He also has a rest early on in his college career. Now that arrest, I don't think is going to be anything serious. It's going to be more like we need to ask you about this, Peyton, because you do have an arrest on your record, right? But like he does have some off-field baggage, is all of that to be said. So I think that he's a value that I wouldn't be shocked if he falls to day 3 potentially. Like if he could possibly be there in the 4th round, where if you get him and he's able to stay healthy, he's a starting will linebacker in the NFL for a long time. Like he's a really good football player. Over 6'4", 237 pounds. He, against Notre Dame this year, ran down on a play in pursuit Chris Tyree, who went back to school and transferred to Virginia. Chris Tyree was a championship sprinter coming out of high school and probably a 4.3 athlete, and he hawked him down in the open field. I mean, I think Payne Wilson is going to run probably in the 4.4s at that size, that length. He reminds me a lot of Kiko Alonso and the good version of Kiko Alonso.
I mean, Ryan, next question. Cliff Kingsbury obviously is the OC here, and they're not going to run the exact same thing they had at Arizona, but the spread offense. What are some running backs in this class you think would be good connections that you wouldn't have to spend high value capital on, but you could get good production out of?
My number one guy, who I don't know when he'll be available as far as rookie year, but I'm just obsessed with Rasheen Ali out of Marshall, man.
I've seen that.
Obsessed
I've seen you
with him.
tweet about him.
He reminds me so much of Aaron Jones. That's obviously been playing with the Green Bay Packers. He has a outside zone, inside zone heavy approach. The kid's just got the juice, man. Like he's explosive. He's twitched up. He can change direction. He can catch the football. He's only about 204 pounds, so he's probably going to have to be a part of a stable in effect of not being the every down bell cow, if that's your approach. But, man, he's a really good football player. And honestly, like, there's even guys like I think Blake Corum is going to go a little lower in the draft than some people think because he's got a little bit of durability stuff as well. 3rd to 4th round. He's not going to be for everyone, but as a 5'7", right around 210-pound running back, he can run obviously the inside zone work. He's got enough speed to hit the corner at times. And he's a really good player just kind of working, from the 1st to 2nd level with his reads. Like I think he's just a really solid football player. So there's no guy at the top of the class that I would say is a no doubt first rounder or even maybe really a top 45 to 50 player. Like I don't even know if that guy's there, but if you're talking about Trey Benson, so talking about a couple of those players, even an Audric Estime, if that's what your style is, because I mean, obviously Cliff had some success with James Conner out there in Arizona for a little bit. So, I mean, he kind of fits that more modern big back that can also kind of have a little bit of juice. I mean, those types of guys are out there for sure in this class.
I absolutely love it. Last question I have for you, and I didn't prep you on this beforehand, so please forgive me, but in the grand view, let's not put this like just like a left guard or right guard, but in this draft class, the best value position, either offensive line, defensive line, DBs, running backs, what is the best value all throughout this draft class? And you obviously don't know every single prospect, but just looking at it from grand view.
Well, I think it's if you're talking about the first like 3 rounds or so, I think it's offensive tackle. I think that you're going to be able to get an offensive tackle in every single round. That could start pretty early on in his career. If not as a rookie, probably in their second year. If you're asking me for the entirety of the draft, I would go with wide receiver. I mean, wide receiver this year is just so deep, man. Like everyone's going to talk about, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. and Roma Dunze and all those cats. But, I mean, you're going to get Lad McConkey in the second round, who's going to be a premier slot receiver in the NFL. You're going to dip down and just get guys like Roman Wilson from Michigan and Javon Baker out of UCF, just guys that are just going to be good players for you, man, throughout this draft. So I would say in its entirety wide receiver, but if you're talking about just first 2 days, I think offensive tackle is a class that has tremendous value and is really great up top as well.
Ryan, you not only answered it, but you gave me more, and I absolutely love and appreciate that. Ryan, before you get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, sir, and would like to?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I appreciate you guys for having me on as always. Rise and Draft. It's like shake and bake. Rise and Draft. RASEN Draft, and follow the content along. I'll be here all week.
Ryan, real quick, before I might get
Yes.
stoned to death if I don't ask you this. Let's just say
Yes.
Caleb Williams goes number 1. Who should Washington take it to?
Oh man, that's gosh. So I've had it in back-to-back mock drafts. I had Jaden Daniels going 2 mock drafts ago. I had Drake May going this past draft. I personally have Drake May graded higher than Jaden Daniels, but I do believe that Jaden Daniel fits more of what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do, if that makes sense, right? Like I do think that he wants that dual threat capacity. I think he wants that guy that can extend with his legs, be involved in the QB run game at times. So all that to say is I think that it will probably be Jaden Daniels. That's just my guess right now. But personally, if I had to pick, I'd probably go Drake May, but it's a decent conversation.
Yeah, it's a really good answer as well. Ryan, have a great weekend, brother. Enjoy the combine, get lots of work done, and make those connections, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, Ryan.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Ryan Roberts. I always appreciate him and his draft analysis. Very, very good guy.
Show.
Love the in-depth analysis.
I wanted to get my Daniel Kelly question in, but I forgot.
Good thing you didn't. Good thing you didn't. I'll just say that. Now let's go to our fan questions, and let's go to Twitter for these ones because we do have a couple on Twitter, which normally we don't have that many. But look, man, it's a great, beautiful Thursday. Everyone's hyped up because of the Senate passing that RFK bill. We're going back to D.C. None of the Maryland politicians voted for it. I wonder why. And all I'm going to say is today's a beautiful day. We still have smart people out there. Still smart people. Now, that being said, the question from Tony Franchise. I don't want it to happen, but if we trade down to take Joe Alt later in first, what second-tier quarterback would you take in the second round?
Bro Nix has been growing on me. Like, I still have a sour taste in my mouth from his Auburn days just because I was watching him, and I was just like, wow, like you are bad. But he's definitely grown. He's definitely matured more. And speaking of grown and matured more, I got to go with your guy, Spencer Rattler. I was hating on him in the beginning of his career, rightfully so. He was way immature. He wasn't looking his best at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. And obviously, like you said, funny enough, Caleb Williams comes in, takes his job, and moves with Lincoln Riley. But I think him going to South Carolina, him kind of getting humbled and getting his job taken by Caleb Williams kind of humbled him. He matured more. And I think that if he can keep maturing and his processing gets a little bit better, I think that Spencer Rattler could be maybe like a kind of like a Sam Howell, but like a higher ceiling type of guy, like a low-end starter, maybe middle of the pack type of starter if he really reaches his ceiling. So I think those are 2 guys. I mean, I wouldn't take him in like the second round. Like I'm just saying like that second tier of guys is like Bo Nix for me. Probably Spencer Rattler and Michael Penix, those type of guys.
I'm with you. Now, Tony, if this was like, let's say we're just doing this for any team, right? Like, let's say you're just building a team from scratch. I think that there is a serious conversation needs to be had about Michael Penix. I do think that Penix is very good at what he does, and it's evident in the film that he shows, along with Nix and others, along with Rattler. But I do think that is a question. But for Washington, the conversation has to be brought up with Bo Nix because he has the size for it. He has the athleticism for it. He has the release. He gets the ball out quick. He's able to spread that ball out like you need to, and also isn't scared to throw over the middle. And so I think that that's somebody you really do have to look at. But Spencer Rattler, like honestly, dude, if you could have asked me 3 years ago what is the perfect situation for Washington, I would say if literally what happened to Rattler, if you were in on Rattler 3 years ago and you knew that you said that day, I'm still going to take him whenever he comes out, like this is the best case scenario for you. Like if you truly believe in everything, like that is the time to do it because you can wait and you don't have to spend a lot of capital on it. But there's a lot of guys I would choose there, but I think Bo Nix is leading the charge for me at the moment. I don't want to crap on J.J. McCarthy. The kid's a winner. There's just something missing.
I also think he's going to go like early first round, like mid first round, the latest. So I don't think he'll be there in the second round, even if they wanted to like get him.
Yeah, Sean Payton's out there. You know what that is. Now the next question from David on Twitter: is there anyone you feel can project themselves into a conversation about our second or third round picks by their combine performance that so far has gone under the radar? Maybe a roundabout way of asking who your sleepers are.
Yeah, I gotta look at the prospects that are there, but I would say that they're definitely going to be looking at edge in the second round. They're definitely going to be looking at tackle, whether it be left or right. So I would have to go and look at the guys that are at the combine right now. I don't want to like delay the whole podcast looking at my phone trying to Google everything. So I would just say defensive end and right or tackle overall are two positions that they could definitely help themselves out, and rise up during the combine throughout this draft process to maybe get picked in one of our 2 second round picks or both.
I think there's a lot of players in this position, David. I think Christian Jones is one, the tackle from Texas. You know, obviously PFN is not a meter for what guys are projected as, but he's being projected now in the 6th or 7th round. And what I've seen on film from him, it should be at least cut in half. And so Christian Jones is somebody who could literally fly up draft boards, and I'd be all over from playing right tackle for you. There's some other guys as well. Like Jonathan Brooks is already projected as the 2nd to 3rd rounder himself. But I would say like Peyton Wilson, like Cedric Gray, obviously his measurements has already come out, but if he tests really well in some aspect, that could make it jump up. But I think Peyton Wilson most likely is the one that you're looking at, just because if you're looking at their defense and what they want to do, Peyton Wilson embodies it. And not only does he embody it, he also shows you the other aspects of the game that allow him to transition to the NFL easily. And the reason why I say easily is those traits that he does have, meaning the pursuit angles, that kind of IQ level with that, even if the other avenues of his games falter, you know that that's something that he can at least do. Whereas other prospects don't have that pursuit, and let's say they don't do what they did in college well, they don't have anything, right? And so at least you have that bar to go up with, and he's also a blitzing, attacking style linebacker. I think that he's somebody who could definitely make that jump up based on his medical interviews and everything like that. But at the end of the day, David, in my personal opinion, the number one thing the combine is for the interviews, is the in-person interviews. It's the most important aspect of the scouting process, in my opinion, and it's the one thing I can never get my hands on. Will never get my hands on. Now, the next question that we have, thank you, David, it was a really good one. From Washington Werewolves. Hey, my friend, happy Thursday. How about a discussion about our fans being so judgmental and losing their minds at every little thing our owner, GM, and coaches does? Fans act like they know better than the pros that have the inside info, doing extensive research, etc. Just chill.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have an answer to that. I completely agree, but look, fan is short for fanatic, and at the end of the day, we're all fanatics. We love this team. We think we know best. Obviously, like you said, we think we know better than the guys that have been doing it their whole careers, their whole lives, basically. And yes, there is some people out there that like Kyle, like people on Twitter and whatnot that like Maul that look at tape and they can break stuff down and be like, oh, I like this guy. This guy does this good. This guy does this bad. But they are like in the minority. The majority, yes, you are right. They lose their minds over everything. And look, I don't blame them because, like I said, fan is short for fanatic. people are going to go crazy over this team no matter what, whether they win or they lose. I've always said this team could cross your fingers. This team could get to the Super Bowl, beat a team 38-3, and there would be people complaining they let them score 3 points. Like it is what it is. People are going to complain, be mad about everything. You just got to roll with the punches and stick with the positives, unless they have something negative that you can talk about. It makes you say something negative about them. But as of right now, it should be all positive vibes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the Werewolves, you're right as well. And the one thing I'll say this. Let's imagine that you buy a brand new house, right? And it's a really big house. It needs a lot of work. But it was expensive, and you guys really, really wanted it. You just closed on this house. You're moving in, but you're giving all of the – you are doing all the remodeling. You're giving all the money to your spouse. And you're saying, take care of all of it. I don't want to know anything that you do. That's what they're complaining about with Josh Harris. Because Josh Harris just sitting and watching is an issue because that brings it back to Snyder. Look, I'm not going to be mad at the guy for sitting and watching, but like Hall, like you said so elegantly before, if he is enforcing his opinion, that is completely different from him soaking things in. And I am 100% okay with Josh Harris doing whatever the heck he freaking wants, dude. They spent a crap load of money on this thing. Do whatever the hell you want to do. Just don't enforce your opinions on the people that you paid to do it here. If you want to sit around and learn, be my guest. The last thing we want is a guy running this organization who has no idea about the process and then tries to act like he knows the process, i.e. Dan Snyder. At least get to know the process and respect the process and the people who are working at that process. And I would imagine that's what Josh Harris entails. So no, I don't care.
You also got to assume that Adam Peters and all these Dan Quinn, all these guys, they wouldn't have took this job if he was a type of owner that was going to be like, hey, you're going to do what I say or else.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like you said, you just got to trust that the right people are finally in place. I get it. The last 20 plus years with Dan Snyder has warped a lot of people's minds and thinking, but you got to just somehow, some way, like let that ooze, that poison of Dan Snyder just seep out your ears, out of your brain. He's done. He's gone. He's done. It's a whole new era of football here, and let's hopefully it's trending up instead of just trending down like it has been.
Yes, absolutely. And look, man, I'm not going to fault the guy at all. Do your thing. People are going to make a big deal about it. This is engagement farming. This is just what they do. They need to drum people up and just, calm down. Take a breather. It's all right. I think everyone keeps thinking that, Harris is the alpha, and obviously he is in his own breath in the business world and everything. But in this situation, I feel like he much so is okay with sitting back and allowing the process to do his thing and not enforcing it because he understands the history of everything here. Now, that being said, the next question from the Discord from Yam Sensei. We haven't really talked about tight ends at all, Hall. What do you want the team to do? And what are some likely predictions that the team will actually do?
Hopefully they're taking a good look at Cole Turner and it's like some practice film, the little bit of reps that he got last year for whatever reason. And hopefully Cole, like he admitted when we had him on here, hopefully he has been working on his blocking and his techniques and whatnot so that he can actually get on the field and produce like we all think that he can. But outside of that, like Ryan said, he thinks it's a weak tight end class outside of like Bowers, who obviously is going to go in the first round, and Sanders, who was probably like a second round pick. But yeah, I like a guy like Gerald Everett, who's in free agency. I think that he would cost pretty much low level tight end money. He's a solid tight end. He's not just the guy that can get out there and make catches, give you the yard after catch. He's a guy that can get on the end of the line. He's going to give you some blocking as well. So yeah, Dalton Schultz obviously is going to be a name that's out there thrown around to the Commanders because we need tight end help, and he's an athletic tight end that can also produce. But I've always been a Gerald Everett guy, so I wouldn't be mad if they signed a guy like Gerald Everett for a couple, like a year or two deal, low level money, couple mil a year type thing.
Honestly, what I would like the team to do with the tight end position is I love Logan Thomas. I'm not sure what he entails going forward, but obviously we can be honest about the situation. But I would really like for them to draft in the middle to late rounds and get somebody that can be – that's not going to 100% come in and start right away, obviously, but is a career trajectory kind of fundamental good tight end to have on your team. That's not the way that George Kittle was envisioned when he was drafted, right? It kind of was groomed and bloomed into that. And that's the kind of tight end factory I want to be able to produce here, is that you have John Bates at 1, Cole Turner at 2, the rookie at 3, and build them up kind of like the Eagles have done. Going back to Selleck in the day, and then it moved to, my goodness, what's his name? Zach Ertz, and then from Zach Ertz, it went to Goddard. The one thing Philly does really, really well is moving from tight end to tight end in their drafting process, and that's the kind of long-term building you want there. Now, what is the prediction?
I love Bates, but I cannot roll into the season with him as a tight end 1. Great blocker, obviously one of the best blockers in the league. I need somebody with a higher upside in the passing game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially with a rookie quarterback in the middle of the field. I need somebody that's going to be able to not even just stretch the field, but like at least pick up a couple yards after the catch, give him that big open frame in the middle of the field. So, look, I think Bates can have upside in the passing game. We haven't used him that much. It's just I need a little bit more juice at that position.
We got somebody. Don't worry. I got you. I got you, boy. Don't worry, man. I got you. Don't worry at all. And then what are the predictions the team will actually do? I could see them going down the vet route, like to your point, Hall, where Kingsbury's saying the same thing you are, right? He doesn't have the same opinion as I do of our tight ends. He hasn't seen what they 100% do, and obviously John Bates didn't have a great year last year along with Cole Turner. So Kingsbury could say that's our number one position we need on offense more so than quarterback. That planet, that reality exists somewhere. Might not be here. I'm just saying that is a possibility. So what they actually will do, I could see them going down the route of adding some veteran depth just to give the rookie some breathing room and some help in that regard. And look, we had that with Logan Thomas before, but the thing is, every one of these tight ends, most likely, they're not going to be kind of the separators, right? They're going to be more so the possession type of guys. And so just getting somebody in there that can help the quarterback in those stressful situations is all that matters. All right, everybody, last question I have. Hall, this is from Tim Towner. Burgundy Zone does math. What are the odds that Chicago trades Justin Fields and drafts a quarterback at 1?
The odds are minus 5,000 in the Mike Hall Sportsbook. We're taking it off the board soon, fellas. I mean, it's one of those things you got to drop thousands of dollars just to make a little bit of profit.
They said the same thing about Ben Johnson coming to Washington. They were about to take it off the fucking board, dude.
Yeah, that's why it's still on the board at minus 5,000. No, but seriously, I think that if I put a percentage on it, I'd probably say it's probably 98% chance that they're gonna trade Justin Fields, draft Caleb Williams, or Jaden Daniels, or Drake May, whoever it might be, but they're gonna trade Justin Fields and probably draft a quarterback.
Honestly, I don't know, Tim. I don't know, because none of it makes frickin' sense. You have the 8th overall pick. Why in the world would you trade for Justin Fields just to have to pay him? Why would you do? It's not going to really elevate them.
Why would Chicago keep him just to pay him? That's the other point too.
That's what I'm saying. None of this makes sense, bro. What I'm saying, like Eberflus, all of it. What does make sense with Eberflus staying is Justin Fields having one more year to earn a contract, giving him the best weapon in the draft, meaning Marvin Harrison Jr., and saying you have one more shot, one chance. You have no excuses now with your boy from Ohio State. Make it happen.
But what do you do?
I don't know.
I mean, I guess they could technically draft like J.J. McCarthy with the 8th pick, but like if that's the route you're going, when are you going to get your quarterback? Because the quarterback draft class next year, like say Justin Fields.
No, that's what I mean is that you could get the ones in here, because obviously we know that there's probably, let's just say, a good backup at least, just to be honest here, that could be in that first round that you could take easily at 8. Do you know what I'm saying? At the lowest floor. And so all I'm saying is,
and that's my point though. If you're trying to put the best stuff around Justin Fields, you're going to give him another piece for the offense at number 8. You're not going to, or you know what I'm saying, add something to the defense to help out the offense.
From the Falcons' perspective or the Bears?
For the Bears, they have the 9th pick. I mean, or something like that, right? They have 1 and 9.
So I'm saying they have 9. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, if you're going to go all in on Justin Fields, you're not going to draft his potential replacement at 9. You're going to
No. You would double it up. You would get probably another edge to counter with Montez, and then at 9.
Right.
And
I thought you meant get your guy at 9, and like if Fields doesn't work out, then you got to. I got you.
That's my point. Is that's why he sent. That's why, in my opinion, is why whatever his name is said that doing right by Justin, because what he's going to do is be able to give him Marvin Harrison Jr., be able to add some sort of because there's a lot of good edge rushers there. There's obviously a tackle you could go with or along those lines and defense, obviously defensive back in other ways. But there's ways to build it up around Justin to make him in a good situation, which is how I interpreted what his comments
I
were.
was going to say, because I interpreted the same comments as in
completely different.
the completely opposite, as in I'm going to do right by him. Like, if we're going to trade him, we're going to do right by him, as in, like, we're going to trade him before free agency starts.
But the counter argument to that is
give him the best chance to succeed.
But the counter argument to that is the family's going to say, well, to hell with Justin, we want the best production in return. You know, we want to
That's
get
true.
as much as, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that would be crazy to to give him to the best situation over like the best offer. But yeah, I mean, it's all just GM talk and coach talk at the end of the day.
I'm with you. All right, everybody. We will see you guys next time. I'm not sure if we're going to record on
But
Sunday. We might record on Monday. Have a really busy weekend this weekend. We're celebrating Cash's 3rd birthday with the family on Saturday. Then Sunday we're going to visit the Colonel. And so I'm not exactly sure when we're going to be able to record. Maybe Monday, but I'll make sure to update you guys. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And if you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion, and we love you guys. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this episode. We really do appreciate it, man. You guys make our days better. Honestly, just letting us know that the pod helps you get through the workday. It makes our day, because like that's what we do, you know, like we try to get through the day by listening to shows and stuff. So it's just cool to hear if that helps somebody else in the same regard. All right, everybody, we'll see you on Sunday. Have a great, safe weekend and enjoy the combine. I'm Kyle. You're Hall. We already said that. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.